Okay, let's start. Good morning, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. My name is Alina Dolgova, and I am international expert in International Financial Center and elite expert of this initiative here in Uzbekistan. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you at the session of the Tashkent International Investment Forum, where we discuss the most important trends and activities in case of the investment policy in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan has made impressive progress in recent years, growing number of investment, new jobs, adaptation of international standards, all point to a more open and dynamic economy. And this forum increasing international reach also highlights that progress. And as noted at the forum opening by the representative of international institution, Uzbekistan now is key regional driver. Important tools supporting this progress include the activities of the Ministry of the Investment, Foreign Investment Council, Single Window, Digital Platform, and other activities of the related agencies. And among the developing initiatives now are Tashkent International Financial Center, focused on providing investors with globally recognized legal and financial instruments, and Enterprise Uzbekistan, aimed at attracting investors in the digital sector and engaging the global tech companies. A priority now is identifying and addressing barriers investors still face across the economy and within specific areas. That requires open dialogue with both active and prospective investors, and today's session is exactly that kind of the dialogue, an opportunity to explore most important steps in case of strengthening Uzbekistan investment attractiveness, which of course can help us shape the agenda of mentioned initiative. And it's my great pleasure to welcome our esteemed panelists, the representative of global investment community. Let me introduce Ariel Meral Rothschild, partner at Rothschild & Co. Denise Spirin, Director of Corporate Governance and Prosperity Capital Management. Hubertus Weiss, Managing Director at Frankfurt Main Finance and Vice Chairman of World Alliance of International Financial Center. Hugh Morshead, Vice Chairman at Henley & Partner. Marius Dan, Chief Executive Officer, Central Asia at Templeton Global Investment. Saif Malik, CEO at Standard Chartered UK, and Abdulahad Kucharov, CEO of IT Park. So let's start, and the first question is to Hubertus. Given your extensive expertise in emerging markets, what do you consider the key for their attractiveness today? And as a head of one of the leading financial centers in Europe, Frankfurt, what do you believe is the foundation of the success of the International Financial Center today? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alina. A warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very big question, and it's very hard to answer that in a few sketches. Let me try it. Trust is probably the single one most important keyword for financial centers. So when you spend your money, you invest your money, the most important thing is you want to know you get it back, ideally with interest, dividends, or whatever you do. So the reliability, the dependability on a legal system, that is a key cornerstone of all creation of financial centers. Besides that, however, there are multiple aspects. There are very often people that ask me is, what is the one thing we need to do to make our financial centers thrive? And I said, well, there isn't that one. It's like a very complex machinery where lots of parts work closely together and they need to enhance and support. And sometimes just one single element missing already makes the machine stop running. So there are elements like talent. By the way, I'm very impressed about the quality of the talent you have. It's digitalization these days. There is no future of financial centers without digitalization anymore. It's safe and secure legal environment, and it's underlying business. So the good news is that Uzbekistan is growing real rapidly, 6.4% over the last 2 decades, which as an economist I translated in, you double every 11 years. So in 22 years you fourfold, in 33 years you eightfold, in 44 years you 16folds, which is beautiful. So you can already see the trajectory you're on. And financial services usually follows it, and it starts usually with humble services, of course, private services for people where you are very advanced when it comes to PPP, digital payments, all that, you're very safe and set. The next thing that comes is trade financing. And after trade financing, there's usually the challenge of building a capital market. A capital market is key because that drives valuation of corporations. It drives also the sharing of the majority of the population into the prosperity. And for the majority of the population to share in the prosperity, you have to set up pension funds with capital accumulation, which you then feed into your capital market, and it becomes a positive upward spiral. So this has been a long answer to a short question, but a complicated one.
Thank you so much, Hubertus, for highlighting very important areas of the competitiveness, and actually it's a solid ground for our work with the colleagues on developing of the particular initiatives. And let's now turn to the investors. Marius, you've recently opened the office in Tashkent and announced an ambitious plan to list $1.7 million of Uzbek state assets on the global market. And in your view, what are advantages of investing in Uzbekistan for global investors today?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for that question. As an introduction, I'm honored to be leading the National Investment Fund of Uzbekistan, which has been established earlier this year. As Elena mentioned, Franklin Templeton as the trustee and fund manager of the National Investment Fund has opened an office in Tashkent earlier in April. We have hired a terrific local team. We continue to add more people to join this project, and I've been very impressed in the local talent that we have found here. We're also bringing people back from London, from other financial centers where they've had great experience, because this is a very important project for Uzbekistan. This is something that I've been personally working on for a number of years, and it is great to see that it has come to fruition. It's a clear sign of commitment on behalf of the president of Uzbekistan, of the government. It's a strategic step forward in the transformation of the state-owned companies, in improving the transparency, the disclosure, the investable universe, and ultimately it's a very clear commitment of developing the local capital market, because if we do our job right, the Tashkent Stock Exchange should grow significantly from this point on, because you have mentioned the listing, the IPO of the fund itself. This is something that we have started working since day one. We officially launched the fund on the 1st of May, and we're at a stage where we've hired the equity advisors. We're right now in the process of hiring the legal advisors, and over the next 3 weeks we'll be hiring the investment banks to work on this IPO, with a target date of completion in the first half of next year. And we've already started the investor education, and I've been nothing short of impressed about the interest of foreign institutional investors in Uzbekistan, because the companies, private companies, state-owned companies have done a terrific job in accessing capital markets on the fixed income side. But in terms of equity access, the IPO of the National Investment Fund, as well as the IPO of Navoi, will be the first two large international transactions that will give investors the opportunity to participate in the local economy. And I think the structure of the fund is incredibly attractive. We have 18 large state-owned companies with minority stakes from 20 to 40%. And in very attractive sectors as well. We have banking, we have energy, we have infrastructure, logistics, we have the commodity exchange, the post office, Uzbekistan Airways, airports, hydropower company, thermal power plants. So it will give the National Investment Fund effectively is a one-stop shop for institutional investors to access Uzbekistan outside of the mining sector, because we don't have mining in the portfolio. Last week in London, presenting Uzbekistan and the National Investment Fund, I've received a lot of interest for anchor investors, for cornerstone investors, which really shows, and this was kind of the first international roadshow that we've done, and it really shows how much untapped demand there is out there for Uzbekistan, and how much interest there is. And I really hope that with the IPO of the Uznif, Navoi, we'll all be able to capitalize on that interest. And another very important point is that there's also visibility on the future transactions that should happen in Uzbekistan, because there has been a presidential decree approved with another 7 initial public offerings from our portfolio, and that's a very powerful tool to make sure investors know what other liquidity events, what other IPOs are going to happen in Uzbekistan. So having this calendar is a powerful tool for the fund itself, and it will help us in the IPO.
Thank you so much. Ariella, you represent one of the world's largest independent financial advisory group. And what sparked your interest in Uzbekistan?
Thank you, Alena, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe first of all, just to mention that I've started my career when the Berlin Wall fell, like in 1989. So I've been working with several governments across CE and CIS since that time, and I'm really fascinated by the rhythm of the reforms which have been announced and taking place into Uzbekistan. It reminds me, maybe only one country who's been going really fast was Poland at that time, which was the first one to lead into opening its economy and transitioning. And today you can see that Poland is one of the most attractive countries in Europe. Having said that, here in Uzbekistan, we've been working here since 2020. We've started with the privatization of Coca-Cola, and I think that was very clever from the authorities, Coca-Cola bottling, to take such a good asset to have the first privatization. Since we've been continuing to work with the state, which we're now working on the opening the capital of SQB, the second largest bank. We're also working on the IPO to come of NNMC, which is the largest company in Uzbekistan. I mean, the gold mine, Mohantal, which is well known to all of you. So we're very proud of this, to have this assignment. And we are also working with the UTG, Uztransgaz, to find funds to modernize the pipeline of gas. And we have also been this week mandated to privatize Mobius, the telecom mobile company. So we're very active, and this is just to say now what is very attractive here in Uzbekistan, and I would probably say four things. I mean, of course, the reform momentum, which is very strong, again, unprecedented, and this has been leading to having such growth. One of you was mentioning the growth and 6.5% last year, and this is some kind of average lately. So I think this is very, very impressive and very rare today. And this is linked to adopting business support measures and has allowed also the transitioning from a state-owned, totally, I would say, economy to more and more progress towards a private economy. And now you have if you look at the statistics, I mean, you see that the private sector, not only because of the FDIs which have been coming in, but also the SMEs are moving ahead. And this is, I think, fundamental to have SMEs growing, because this allows also the population to increase its welfare. So the private, I mean, also the demographic and the market potential, of course. I mean, you have 37 million inhabitants, which is the largest Central Asian country, and it's a young population. 60% of the population is under 30, and by 2050 the population could reach 50 million. So I think this is very attractive as a market, and as a consumers, as the society is going to grow, urbanization, growing middle class, and this will create very good and long-term opportunities in consumer goods, in services, and infrastructure. The other very strong point is, of course, the strategic location of Uzbekistan. I mean, I think in the presidential opening of this forum, you could see on one of the slides, I mean, 5 hours destination to Europe, 5 hours to the other side of Asia. And I think the crossroad where Uzbekistan is important. You have major investment projects now in railways, road, logistic corridors, and this is going to allow also to revive the role as a land bridge between East and West. And of course, additionally, Uzbekistan is blessed with considerable natural resources, from natural gas, gold, rare minerals, cotton, and is wisely diversifying beyond all these. So I think the regional connectivity also with the Belt and Road and will further boost Uzbekistan's role in international trade. And maybe the fourth element is the stable and open governance. I mean, there is a clear will from the authorities into the strategic vision to open to partnership, and I think this is adding to the appeal of the country. So not only it's a reform-minded leadership which has fostered stability and began strengthening the rule of law, and investor protection, which was also mentioned, which is very important, but the state is working closely with institutions like ADB, EBRD, World Bank, and I think they assess the transparency of the major projects. Also, a very important element which we are seeing is that the supervisory boards of the SOEs are being restructured to have more independent board members. And now they are counting like 40% of independent board members on the SOEs, mainly banks, 25% in the non-banking sector, and 50% will be needed if for the companies who are willing to go on the foreign stock exchange as listed. And for example, for USNIF or for Navoy, which will be going to dual listing, that will be needed. So I think all these four elements are very attractive for Uzbekistan. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you so much. Saif, your colleagues from the investment community have highlighted some advantages of Uzbekistan, and what is Standard Chartered's UK interest in the Uzbek market? And as a global player, how do you assess the attractiveness of the country as a jurisdiction? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Elena. It's lovely to be here, and very warm, as always, a great reception and a very warm welcome from beautiful city of Tashkent. Unfortunately, I think Ariel's speaking notes and my speaking notes were very similar. So all I can say is that I think from an investor perspective, if you have consistency in terms of what we've just heard from Ariella, which is very eloquently listed the four key parts, and maybe I'll just talk a little bit about that when we look at an investment destination. But if I can take one step back for a second, I just wanted to introduce Standard Chartered Bank. For those of you who are not football fans, we are not just the main sponsor of Liverpool Football Club that won the English Premier League a couple of weeks back. We're also one of the largest global trade banks in the world. We're listed in the UK. We're headquartered in the UK. We operate in 54 markets, predominantly in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. And we are the sixth largest US dollar clearing bank. That just shows you the volume of cross-border trade that goes through our counters. So we play a very important role in global trade. And for us, the one piece of the pie that we hadn't really sort of looked at in the past had been the Central Asia region. And we decided to look at Uzbekistan. Why Standard Chartered Bank UK specifically? It was because we don't have a presence here, so we run it as a non-presence market, and that falls within my jurisdiction there. And so my team and I, most of my team is here, have spent the last 2 years really understanding this country, the market, and the players. And as Ariel talked about the 4 points, I wanted to just sort of come back to those. I think when you see the clear and consistent and unwavering commitment by the government, led by the president, in terms of the reforms that they've put in place, in terms of where the Vision 2030 for Uzbekistan, needs to go in terms of getting into a investment grade sort of marketplace, getting the GDP to close to 240 billion, keeping a very strict and disciplined approach to debt to GDP, and that's been a very positive and a very encouraging sign for us as we've looked in and come to see the opportunities. We talked about natural resources, be it gold, copper, other minerals that are there. But I think also most importantly, this is a hungry country that has a growing consumer base, but also that needs infrastructure. And the infrastructure part has been a very exciting part where we've come in and we've tried to see how we can plug a gap there. As a bank, we have very strong capabilities on the infrastructure and the renewable energy sectors. We work very closely with international financial institutions like the export credit agencies. In the UK, we have UK Export Finance, a very close partner of ours, but we also work with the likes of MIGA, ISIC. These are multilateral guarantee facilities. And what we do as a connector bank is that we look at pools of capital that we have globally and we bring them to our clients, and that's been a very important strategy for us here. working closely with our embassy here in Uzbekistan, with our ambassador Tim Smart, Nick Altman, who's here from the FCDO. We've developed a strategy working with the large SOEs and working with government and working with the top 4 banks in Uzbekistan to ensure we are able to raise the capital that they need to move the various projects together. So just to give you a quick snapshot, in the last, I would say 12 months, I think 12 months specifically, we've closed nearly 15 transactions in terms of unlocking the US dollar value of what's that brought into the country is close to about $7.5 billion. I was fortunate yesterday, last night, to meet with the president, and I saw this unwavering commitment where he was there with some key ministers. And in terms of, this is what we see on the sidelines, but I was able to see that yesterday firsthand in terms of the ability and the commercialness of how they're operating as a government to get key infrastructure done, to follow through, procurement processes, but at the same time not to delay with bureaucracy. And that's one of the main reasons why we've closed these transactions in this period of time, and we have a huge pipeline. So we continue to work towards that. We are a very strong player, like I said, infrastructure, renewable energy, sustainable finance. As a bank, we have committed $300 billion for transition finance. Uzbekistan is a key role in that. And we're also one of the largest Islamic commercial banks. And we've already closed a few transactions here, and we hope to work with the government to do more. So I'll stop there, and maybe we can pick up some questions later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saif, Ariel, and Marius, for highlighting, I should say, the foundation of investment attractiveness of Uzbekistan. So we spent more than a half of the session to discuss how Uzbekistan and how global community views Uzbekistan potential. And let's now slightly shift the focus and discuss what is being done to strengthen Uzbekistan investment attractiveness across some critical areas. Denise, you work with portfolio investors and have been based in Uzbekistan for several years, supporting the improvement of corporate governance in the country. And how would you assess the changes in Uzbekistan legal environment over the past 3 years, I should say, particularly in terms of corporate governance? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Aliona, for question. Good morning, everybody. I'm involved in corporate governance sphere in the region for almost 20 years now. And as Aliona said, during the last 3 years, I very closely follow corporate governance developments in Uzbekistan. 3 years is not enough to have any corporate governance transformation, even at the company, and even more so at the country level. But 3 years is probably enough to have some preliminary or initial steps done. And I would say, for example, to have a roadmap with clear goals, corporate governance goals, and clear steps how to achieve the goals, plus some immediate corporate legislation changes to close most obvious corporate legislation loopholes or to address the most important corporate governance risks, and plus to have some single forum where all interested stakeholders can jointly sit, discuss, and work together through corporate governance agenda. And we're unfortunately still missing those aspects in Uzbekistan after 3 years. But we now have a special governmental body responsible for capital markets and corporate governance, the body called National Agency of Priority Projects. It was assigned this role around a year ago. They took some time to deep dive into the agenda, to get involved, and now I think ready to lead the agenda, to propose some corporate legislation changes, to propose new corporate governance codes and other stuff. Plus, controlling stakes of largest state-controlled companies now managed by UZ Assets, which has a very good team. The team, as I can see, has very good understanding of corporate governance concepts, of challenges they face, and they have very good understanding what to do in terms of improvement or facilitation of corporate governance progress on the level of state-controlled companies. And it seems to me that they really have mandate and have policymakers' support, which is a very good sign. Third aspect, we now have a national fund managed by a very experienced and reputable investment firm, Franklin Templeton. This fund will already accumulated significant minority stakes of larger state-controlled companies. And we'll work jointly, as I understand, with those assets to promote corporate governance transformation in the largest state-controlled companies, to increase their investment attractiveness, transparency, and other aspects important for growth of the companies and value of companies in the investor's eyes. And fourth point, yesterday during Foreign Investors Council meeting session, the President announced several initiatives, and one of them was to create a corporate governance working group, which I hope will become a single place where, as I said a couple of minutes ago, all interested stakeholders can jointly sit, work together, and jointly work towards common corporate governance goals. So, short answer, during the last 3 years, I haven't seen much progress in corporate governance sphere in terms of some real steps. But at the very moment, we are probably at the stage where we have very solid foundation to have this progress start now, and to have this, to see this progress as kind of a really fast process in the next few years. And I hope that the next forum and the forum after next forum and so on, we will sit and discuss exact achievements in corporate governance sphere, and very importantly, among other things, how those achievements ensure and protect minority shareholders' rights, and on top of that, how those achievements contributed to economic growth and prosperity of Uzbekistan. Thank you.
Marius, do you have comments? Yeah.
Yes, if I can add just one perspective on corporate governance, because as I look at the pillars of success of the National Investment Fund of Uzbekistan, this is clearly one of them. And we've already done an initial assessment of the governance in our 18 companies, and just a couple of comments. Ariel mentioned percentages, so there are independent directors in every single portfolio companies that we have. We've discussed with them, we've looked at the process. It's been, I think, a very efficient process. The people that have been appointed are clear independence. They have strong experience in the sectors in which the companies operate. And for us, one of the abilities of the fund is to appoint additional independent directors on the boards of the state-owned companies. So over the next 2-3 months, we will be working to appoint members of my team, as well as 1 or 2 additional independent board members in every single asset. That is something that we've agreed with the government, and it's not about replacing the existing independents, it's about adding new independent board members. So in most of the companies, I think that will shift the structure of the board from the way it is right now to mostly independent, and that's a very powerful tool, and it also another sign of commitment that governance is a key priority, as announced yesterday by the president. But these are real actions that are being taken, and I'm able to compare governance in across emerging and frontier markets that we invest in. I'm able to compare it to the way it works in Romania, where I've been part of the team managing a similar national investment fund, and I can tell you that it is a very independent process, and the quality of the people that are already on the boards of the companies is impressive, and we are going to add to that with people that we know, with people that can add to the way that the companies are operating.
Thank you, colleagues. Actually, the legal environment is quite crucial in developing long-term trust with global investors, and another key component is, as many of you already mentioned, is developing an attractive, highly skilled professional and talents. Today, actually, the race for talents is no less competitive than the race for financial capital. And Hugh, how can Uzbekistan become an attractive place for highly skilled professional? And the most important question, how can the country retain them over the years?
I hope I'll be able to answer at least some of those. So I'm Hugh Morshead, and I'm Vice Chair of Henley & Partners. Henley & Partners does one thing in life, and that is to help people who wish to have additional or alternative citizenship or residence. Most of our business is actually in residence, you'll be interested to know. We have about 60 odd offices around the world, most recently in the States. And we think that we're the largest firm doing what we do. I'd like to cover two aspects of this, and that the first thing is, what do governments do that makes it attractive? And then what are the needs of the applicants or the potential people who are coming here, and what are their motives for actually deciding that in the first instance they actually want to have an alternative choice for them and their families. So in terms of the governments themselves, this is all allied to inward investment policies, because in my remote position I cannot tell a government what it needs. The government needs to tell me what it needs, and I will try and fit an appropriate programme for them, or some choices which we believe will be something that an applicant would be interested to follow. So those choices are many and varied. And in fact, in Uzbekistan, you've already started on the smaller ones, such as the nomads. You've got nomads who can actually set up business here. I often wonder whether or not that's a really big economic kicker, because I always worry that these people are going to go away and do it on some other beach that takes their fancy. But there is precedent in this neck of the woods, because Kazakhstan at the AIFC, they already have quite a lot of nomads actually that's registered with businesses there, and they've got some funders for those nomads. So that's not really my field too much, but I take interest in that. The other thing probably just to talk about, to compare, where you've got these programs already in existence, would be Portugal with its golden visa, which has been around for many, many years now. They've changed the shape of it several times. And similarly, in Dubai, because Dubai has its own its visa program, and now its golden visa. And its golden visa has many different classes of investment, and they're all quite clearly listed out on their website. At the moment, most people come in under real estate, and less people come in under a direct investment, but both of those are available. So the question then is, well, what are the needs of the government? And very often, in my experience, governments need to think this one through a bit more, because as I said a moment ago, we can't tell them what their needs are. They've got to be helpful to me to be able to say, actually, this is what we think we're looking for, and I will be able to say, well, these are the sorts of people that I think would be interesting to you. So I'd probably like to move on now to the private client side. And the question was private clients and talent. So you have to recognize that there are some people who want a plan B, and their plan B is they're happy to invest in a country up to a certain level, according to whatever the plan ever actually turns out, because, and if you take the Americans in particular, subject to, because of COVID in particular, the performance of the US in respect of management of COVID was so poor that actually American citizens had great difficulty in moving around the world. And so we found great interest from people who actually say, do you know what? I really need a plan B in the event that there's another problem area happening, and otherwise I don't have that particular possibility to escape and find myself elsewhere. The issue there is that that's different from probably some of the sort of investors that Uzbekistan are looking for. They're looking for people who are actually going to bring a business or run a business from here. So, and I would say we have a mixture coming through us. And the important thing, if I'm looking for someone who's going to come here to come here, and I know what their business interest is already, then I've got a really decent conversation. And from what I've heard in these few days, I'm really impressed by the initiatives being taken, the corporate governance for one, the introduction of funds. Because guess what? Funds is a really interesting thing. Funds are far more used nowadays to build up a body of money which is able to be invested, and it could easily be invested through a sub-fund into the one economic requirements that the government here is looking for. So mostly people have been investing in real estate for the funds for residents by investment, and by and large those are self-invested in approved programs or approved developments, and then people will be able, that will then be a qualifying investment for them to take forward a residence in a particular country. In Uzbekistan, then it's not quite as developed as that, but that's something that we're discussing with the government just to see whether or not we can come up with some ideas. And I think the most important thing is, will these developments work out in the long term? And what we've heard on corporate governance, new rules for funds, new regulations, and everybody that we talk to, they're used to the requirement for due diligence and making sure that everything is absolutely right with the investor as well as the investment itself. So then probably the next thing just to add, or near the end now, to add, is regulation is needed in everything that we do. Regulation is the baseline for when people actually want to make an investment. And so that requires so many different steps. And if an investment can be approved by a government, then it puts us in a good position when explaining that to a new investor that might want to bring their business to Uzbekistan. Then I guess the very final thing is, how do you make it attractive for people to come to Uzbekistan? Because they know they're going to get the personal services that they require, concierge services, and welcoming sort of a support network of existing people who've come in, as well as services by government and private services as well. I think that's really what I wanted to say. I hope I've covered most of the interest there.
Thank you. As noted at OECD session yesterday, attracting capital and talents in the digital sector is crucial for Uzbekistan. In this context, the Ministry of Digital Technologies and IT Park is developing a special infrastructure in Enterprise Uzbekistan. Abdullah Hort, could you share your current priorities, particularly in terms of attracting investment in the technology sector? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alana. It's a great pleasure to be here, to be a part of Tashkent International Investment Forum. And as our distinguished guests said before, Uzbekistan has showed huge growth. For instance, last year the GDP has grown at 6.5%, and most growth sectors was IT, transport, and tourism. And if you talk about the previous year, from 2017 till 2024, the FDI flows has grown from 3.5 billion to 35 billion, and which economy has shown the growth of 10 times for the last 7 years. I think it's only Uzbekistan, and a lot of sectors has showed the growth in Uzbekistan, and IT is one of them. It's just, for instance, when we started in 2019, the total number of companies, the members of IT sectors, were 144, and only 4 of them was international companies. Now the total members of IT parts almost 3,000 companies, with 750 foreign companies with a foreign capital, and 800 companies. It's active exporters. And last year the revenue of our members was $1.7 billion USD. The projection for this year will be almost 2.5, 2.7 billion USD at least, and export has grown, will be exceed more than $1 billion USD. And International Digital Technology Center, Enterprise Uzbekistan, it's a, how to say, it's like a version of IT Park 2.0, yeah? It's like a, when app it's modernizing a new version of app, and we are very close working with DIFC, Dubai International Financial Center, with Qatar Financial Center to apply best practices in Uzbekistan. And this financial center will provide like a special regulatory conditions like English law, corporate and labor law, and financial and banking activities, IP, property and personal data protection for companies who can register at this special economic zone. And main goal is attracting foreign capital, foreign investments in IT sphere. And if last year approximately every month 20, 25, 30 companies registered at IT Park, foreign companies, this year there from 30 to 40 companies every month registering in IT Park, and almost 200 companies being new members every month. Our goal is increase the number of companies, increase the number of foreign companies up to 10,000 companies, foreign companies. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I suppose we need to sum up the session, and I would like to close with a quick blitz question to every speaker. If you had to highlight one key decision that should be done to enhance Uzbekistan attractiveness, what would it be? Very briefly, in 1 or 2 words, Hubertus.
Create a public pension schemes, feed it, and use the investments for infrastructure.
Marius?
And this is something we're working on the market infrastructure to allow investor access on the local stock exchange.
Ariella?
To accelerate the Tashkent International Financial Center. I mean, today you have $270 trillion under asset management, and I think part of it should come here. I mean, today investors or people who have wealth are looking for various places to put their money, and I think it will create an ecosystem here which is going to be creating jobs. So I would recommend to accelerate this.
Yeah, mine is just to ensure that the consistency, discipline, and the drive that we've seen government, so whether there's a change of government or there's different ministers, that should be very much the core of the growth of the country. So I would say consistency and discipline.
Denise?
Yeah, well, I'm a corporate governance person, so my wish would be to have a clear corporate governance transformation roadmap with precise focus on protection of minority investors' rights.
Hugh?
Learn and from everybody, especially DIFC and the UAE, because they've set up really good business practices.
Abdullah?
More and more promote Uzbekistan and increase the number of ambassadors like this Uzbekistan.
So I would like to thank you, our speakers, for joining us today, for their insightful comments and trends. We look forward to continued collaboration. And actually now it's the cherry season here in Uzbekistan, and don't miss the opportunity to enjoy some while you are here. Thank you so much.